Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Trisha has had type 1 diabetes for 30 years. She is a high school counselor with 1,200 students under her. 12 of them have type 1 diabetes, and there's no school nurse. We're going to talk about that, and it looks like there's a note here that says, Scott, you go off more than Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation when he finds out his bonus was a membership to the Jelly of the Month Club. Seems like I'm going to go crazy in this one. Lucky you. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Don't forget, if you're a U.S. resident who has type 1 or is the caregiver of someone with type 1, visit t1dexchange.org/juicebox right now and complete that survey. It will take you 10 minutes to complete the survey, and that effort alone will help to move type 1 diabetes research forward. It will cost you nothing to help. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink ag1.com/juicebox. If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. The holidays are here and you would like to give quality and comfortable gifts. I know you would. Head to CozyEarth.com. Use the offer code Juicebox at checkout. Save 40% off of your entire order. You'll be saving off of everything. Your sheets, your towels, and ooh, look at this. Women's stretch knit long sleeve bamboo pajama set. And look at this, they make them for men as well. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the insulin pump that my daughter wears, Omnipod. Learn more and get started today with the Omnipod DASH or the Omnipod 5 at my link, omnipod.com/juicebox.
My name is Trisha, and I have had type 1 for 30 years. I'm 44 years old. I'm a school counselor, and this year I have 10 kiddos with type 1 that I am in charge of because we don't have a school nurse.
What? How big is the school? You have 10?
Oh, we have 1,200.
1,200 kids.
Yep.
That's a lot of kids at a school.
It is. It's a high school, and we have a district nurse, but because of funding and who the hell knows what else, we don't have a school nurse. So
I want to know what the who the hell knows what else. Feel like there's a story there.
There is, but I'm going to leave it off the air for right now.
You're like, I have a short list of stupid people, and here are their thoughts.
Right.
So you're a counselor at that school, not a medical person.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I'm a counselor. I have no medical training myself. My mom is a nurse, but I couldn't force her out of retirement to come be our school nurse. I've tried. Trust me.
That also doesn't make you a nurse. So
no,
because my wife is smart and it's not rubbing off on me at all. Oh my God. How'd you get this job?
I've been a counselor at this school for about 6 years now, going into my 7th in the fall. And prior to that, I was in another district and I was a counselor there as well. So this year was a little bit weird. Of my 10 kiddos with type 1, 6 of them were freshmen this past school year. And of those 6, 5 had doctor's orders that they either had to be supervised when giving their insulin or that somebody at the school had to give their insulin. A couple of them are cognitively impaired, so they don't function at the level of a typical high school kid. They function, a little bit lower. The district nurse said that she couldn't do it, but that she could train a parapro to do it.
Okay.
And that worked briefly. And the person who was doing it just wasn't really great with kids. So I just said I'd take it over.
We've got a person. Now, they're bad with kids. Now, I know this is a high school, so you're wondering how did this happen? But how many people do you think you know in this business that are bad with kids? One out of
not a lot.
I'm just going to say, right?
Not a lot. Most people who go into education truly love kids, and that's why we go into this.
It's got to be a basic thing. Like, you're not like rolling out of high school thinking, I want to be rich. I think I'm going to be a high school teacher.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. That's it. That struck me as odd. Anyway, well, that's dumb luck, but
there's always those people like, I'm sure that there's a comedian somewhere who isn't funny, right? So like, there's always those people who don't fit their jobs.
I've already seen their Netflix special, and yes, I was like, am I going to laugh at some point? What's going on here? And right. Everyone else says you're funny. What's going on? I think that about me. People probably like, if my kids I know don't think I'm humorous at all. So, and I think most people would think that I have a reasonable sense of humor.
I would say, I think you have a reasonable sense of humor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
also,
for sure.
It's fair to say on the podcast, I can't actually take the leash off and let it run. You know what I mean? Because it's a podcast about diabetes.
Right.
Yeah. If I was doing something else, then maybe then you'd hear the whole thing. But but nevertheless. Okay. So so now you have functional control over these kids, or they're helping themselves mostly and you step in if necessary?
Mostly they're helping themselves. I have 2 kiddos that I'm doing everything. The one young lady actually graduated this year, super proud of her, but she is blind, not from diabetes, but from another thing that happened in her life. And she's cognitively impaired. So she functions at about the level of a second grader. So I'm doing her work. And then the other young man, nothing wrong with his vision, but he is cognitively a little bit lower than her. Mm-hmm. So for those 2, I do the shots, I do the testing. They're not on pumps, despite my efforts to, convince their parents. But
hey, that's a weird line. How do you go about that? How do you walk that line?
Well, with the one mom, every time the class has a snack or they go on a field trip or whatever, and so the day is off from what it would normally be. And she usually goes on those out of school experiences with him to help manage, because I have another 200 kids I'm in charge of. I can't just leave school, willy nilly. But so during the whole time, she'll be calling me, what would you do here? What would you do there? And I'll be honest. I mean, I first started on a pump when I was 20 and I'm 44 now. So trying to figure out how to regulate like on long acting and short acting insulin. I can do it when it's a schedule, but when there's unscheduled things, my mind has to do a lot of math. And, so I told her at one point, I said, if he was on, say like a T-Slim or any pump, really, we could reduce his basal if he was doing a lot of activity and it would make life easier, or go into exercise mode or something like that. I said, but I can't give you medical advice for how much long acting to give him, because I'm not a doctor, but here's what I would do type of thing. And she's like, well, do you think a pump is good? I said, yeah, I think it would make your life easier. I'll be honest, but you've got to do what's right for you. Absolutely. So she's kind of in the position that her or his endo doesn't, and I understand this as well, doesn't necessarily want to go with a pump like T-Slim or Medtronic, just because that would give him the ability to play with it himself. And he's a kid who likes to play with computers, likes to play with phones, things like that. And so they're a little bit worried about anything like that.
How old's the kid?
He's 15.
And we think he's just going to start pushing buttons for fun on his insulin pump? CozyEarth.com. Use the offer code Juicebox at checkout to save 40% off of your entire order. I have this whole thing here I'm supposed to tell you about, like enhanced fabrics, superior softness, responsible production. But, look, let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. The towels I use, the waffle towels, are awesome. Super absorbent and soft. I love that one side's kind of waffly and the other side, waffly. You'll look online. You'll see what I mean. The other side's super soft. Together, they're perfect. My sheets are cool. My sweatpants are awesome. My hoodie is all this stuff. How do I put this? Like temperature regulation. Everything's just so breathable. You just feel warm but not hot, cool but not cold when you're wearing them or using them or sleeping in them. That's my experience. I think you'll have the same experience. CozyEarth.com. Use the offer code. Use the offer code Juicebox at checkout to save 40% off of your entire order. And if you get a post-purchase survey, say that you heard about Cozy Earth from the Juicebox podcast. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth.
Yeah, because he functions at about the level of a 5 or 6 year old.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Well,
so
that doesn't not make sense then,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of his doctor's worry. And I can see that, and mom doesn't want to try like looping or anything like that where she could do it because she's scared of that technology, let's say. So I get it. I get it.
Is there a chance there'll be a day when the cognitive ability rises to the level of this being a possibility?
So. Yeah. Yep. I think if we could just get him, up to about like a 4th, 5th grade level, he could probably handle it where he would know enough at least not to just randomly push buttons. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I do. Yeah. What's it like to feel like you're helping all these kids? Like when you stepped in and said, I'll do this. What was your first thought? Like, I just can't leave them with this person?
It's weird. Like my first thought was, well, I understand this and they're comfortable with me because they know if they're having a low, like I'm talking now the kids who manage themselves for the most part, but I'm just there to kind of, in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
They're comfortable with me. They know, I know how they're feeling because I've had this for 30 years. So I get what it feels like to be low or to be high or to, guess wrong on how much you're going to eat for lunch and not want it all and pay the results later. I know all of that. Yeah. And so I was just thinking, these are my people. I can help them. And I still feel that way. I think I got kind of frustrated with the woman who was going to help them because even though they were high school, it was almost like a blame game with her. Why are you low? Why are you high? And she didn't understand that when you're a teenager, hormones and food and exercise and, oh my God, there's a pretty girl over there, like for the boys, like she didn't get it that can cause their sugars to do unexpected things at times.
Right. Or the girls, Trisha, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right, no,
I only have one girl in this whole group, so I've been calling them my boys for the most part.
Oh, I see. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Also, boys probably more so, if we're being honest. But they would come to her with their issues, and she was busy like blaming them by saying, "What did you do? How did this happen?" Those sorts of things. Yeah, that's not valuable.
So it's not valuable, and instead, when your blood sugar is 50 with a down arrow, the kid needs to fix that. He can't think of why it happened. Give him a chance to fix it so his brain can work again, right?
Your blood sugar's falling. Let's stop and be critical thinkers now.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think if you would have eaten 3 more crackers, this wouldn't have happened? Like, lady, I'm dizzy. Yeah, come on. So you step in, you obviously have more, you have a ton of experience, right? So how old were you when you were diagnosed? 14? Is that right?
14, yep.
And that's a long ass time ago, 30 years, 96?
It was.
What was it, 90, 96, 94?
94. 94, yep.
What was management like for you growing up and what were your outcomes like?
Well, when I first was diagnosed, what I remember is I was a freshman in high school. I had always been into sports, right? So I was playing volleyball and suddenly I couldn't serve overhand anymore. Like I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the strength and I couldn't figure out why. And I was like, well, I'm drinking water all the time. I'm going to the bathroom all the time. So long story short, I got diagnosed, right?
Yeah.
And I used R and N. Those were the insulins I had. And it was all about like the exchange meal. Like it was, eat this many carbs for breakfast and this much protein and have a snack at 10 and then eat lunch at noon. And honestly, that really didn't work for my life very well, even back then.
I bet you most people wouldn't believe that exchange diet and our insulin, et cetera, was still 1994.
Oh, but it was.
It was for sure. Yeah, but I bet you most people wouldn't think that. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, go ahead. It didn't work for your lifestyle because it doesn't really work for anybody's lifestyle, but go ahead.
Right. So
today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Omnipod. And before I tell you about Omnipod, the device, I'd like to tell you about Omnipod, the company. I approached Omnipod in 2015 and asked them to buy an ad on a podcast that I hadn't even begun to make yet. Because the podcast didn't have any listeners, all I could promise them was that I was going to try to help people living with type 1 diabetes. And that was enough for Omnipod. They bought their first ad. And I used that money to support myself while I was growing the Juicebox podcast. You might even say that Omnipod is the firm foundation of the Juicebox podcast. And it's actually the firm foundation of how my daughter manages her type 1 diabetes every day. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Whether you want the Omnipod 5 or the Omnipod DASH, using my link lets Omnipod know what a good decision they made in 2015 and continue to make to this day. Omnipod is easy to use, easy to fill, easy to wear. And I know that because my daughter has been wearing one every day since she was 4 years old, and she will be 20 this year. There is not enough time in an ad for me to tell you everything that I know about Omnipod, but please take a look. Omnipod.com/juicebox. I think Omnipod could be a good friend to you, just like it has been to my daughter and my family.
My mom found I don't remember who my first endocrinologist was. I'll be very honest. I don't even remember their name, but she found a new endocrinologist for me who was willing to work with me more and who actually taught me carb counting within the next 1 or 2 years. I still had the R and the N, but at least I had a little bit more control because she was willing to let me do instead of taking all my R at, 7 a.m. before breakfast, I could do a shot before breakfast, a shot, half an hour, 45 minutes before lunch, shot before dinner, things like that to just help me out with when I wanted to eat and when I wanted to play sports and when I wanted to do all of that.
Yeah.
I don't remember when I was initially switched to Humalog, I think, and I don't remember what year that was, I'll be honest. What I do know is that when I was 19, I was in college, I met a girl with an insulin pump when I was at school. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? And how does it work? Right. And so I very shortly after meeting her, switched to a Medtronic pump in between my sophomore and junior years of college. I think it was Humalog is what I used in that, but it didn't have a sensor. It didn't have any of that. I mean, we didn't have that technology yet, but at least I had the pump. So I was only on short acting insulin and basal rates and, all of that good stuff. But still manually figuring everything out. I tried one of the very first Medtronic sensors back in my 20s, and I probably tried it at the wrong time. I had it put on 2 days before my best friend's wedding, and I was the maid of honor, and it just kept beeping during the ceremony. And I ripped it off.
That's not a Medtronic ad that they want.
No, it's not. And I know they've improved. I
was going to say, let us be fair to them. Was that 2000-ish? Around there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was years ago.
But I like the idea of you dropping it in the champagne fountain. You're like, oh my God, this thing.
No, it was literally we're walking back, so they do the ceremony. We're walking back down the aisle after the bride and groom. And the guy I was standing up with, I had known for years. It was her brother's best friend. And I'd known him forever. And I was like, Dave, I'm ripping this thing off. I'll be right back for pictures.
Dearly beloved, beep. Yeah. We're gathered here today. Beep.
Exactly.
Does anyone who thinks that these two people should not beep, beep, beep?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Was there a lot of that?
Everybody was so understanding, but I was mortified.
Oh, sure. What the hell? No, listen, I think Eversense would want me to mention that if you had an Eversense implantable CGM, you could have taken the transmitter off and then popped it right back on after the POTUS.
Yeah, it would have been great.
Eversense.com/juicebox. But that's, well, listen, I like you in on technology early. Obviously, those of you who went and got that stuff early on are probably a large part about why, it still exists and perseveres today and has gotten better and better, because the message back then, even though it wasn't perfect, and you'd hear people say oh my God, that Medtronic thing, it's like a harpoon, or it doesn't work, or you always have to do this with it. But the rest of what people would say is, but I wish it worked better because I love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But I'll be honest, that scared me off of CGMs for a while.
I bet. Yeah. No, I understand.
I was I don't need to be just a beeping,
ruining so wedding season for sure.
Right. The way I got back to using a CGM and as a result, a better system for me. In my I'm going to say early to mid 30s, because it was a long diagnosis, but I was diagnosed with Addison's disease, and I was going low for unknown reasons, and like passing out, and couldn't figure out what's wrong. And my family was like, you either put a CGM on or you're never leaving the house. You know what I mean?
Yes. Stop going to weddings, because we don't want you to fall and hit your head.
Right. And so at that time, I got a Dexcom. I was still using the Medtronic pump at the time because it wasn't like out of warranty yet, but I quickly switched to a T-Slim just because I kind of liked the direction. I mean, the T-Slim wasn't like hooked up with Dexcom yet, but it seemed like they were going to, you know what I mean? So I got on that path, let's say, and it worked a lot better for me. And then a few years ago when Omnipod 5 came out, I went that route, and that's what I'm on now. And I use it in automated. So. Oh,
cool. Hey, guess what? This is interesting. Today, you and I are recording. Omnipod's going to announce Omnipod 5 with G7. And
I know. I got the email.
Yeah, did you? Okay.
I did.
I'm getting the all the lowdown and the skinny will be sent over to me later today. I think I might make a special podcast episode about it to put up on the weekend so people know. It's going to be a one or the other situation, though.
I know, and I don't know which way I want to go. I'll be honest. Like, I mean, I've been on the G6 forever, and it works great. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have nothing against the G6, and I would love to have just one device because I'm an iPhone person, and one device would be beautiful. Because even as a 44-year-old woman in charge of all of these kids with type 1, I leave my PDM behind at times. Not gonna lie. Right. So it would be great. But on the other hand, having that ability with the G7 to like do the whole thing where like you put on the one and let it pre-soak so that you don't have any time without readings, like that's super attractive to me.
Pretty hot. Works great too.
Yeah. Yep. And the whole like transmitter is in the sensor, and it all just sounds wonderful. So I don't know which way I want to go.
For people who don't know what we're saying, at launch, it's Omnipod 5 app for iPhone compatible with G6 or Omnipod 5 integration with Dexcom G7. It's one or the other. So if you want to do Omnipod 5 with the G7, you don't get the iPhone app yet. And if you want the iPhone app, you don't get the G7 yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which makes it a hard decision.
It's a bit of a wah-wah. So what do you think? I mean, which way does the wind blow for you on this?
So honestly, when I saw it, my initial was I'd probably go to the G7 because I like the whole one device. I like the whole you can always know your readings. I love the whole talk to Apple Watch thing because then I just don't even necessarily need to have my phone on me. You know what I mean? I love all of that. And it's not a huge deal to me to carry the two devices. That being said, I reserve the right to change my mind tomorrow. Yeah. I mean, I'm really torn. I'll be honest.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, you do what you'll do. But I mean, listen, if I got the vote, I would G6 with iPhone app.
Okay.
Man. I mean, Arden's been wearing G7 forever.
Yeah. I've heard. And the thing that kept her away from the 5 was that she had to carry the two devices.
Yeah.
Right?
And I wouldn't go backwards. Like you're putting me I'm putting myself in a false position where I'm deciding. But if Arden said to me, hey, I want to go back to G6 so I can have an iPhone app, and she was using Omnipod 5, and I go, oh, whatever you want to do is fine. But like for my money, if it was me, if I was already on G7, I would just stay. And because you got to assume the iPhone app's coming at some point. And like that would be my thinking. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I would think. Like, I don't know.
And I might just wait and let other people like try it out, like try both of them out at first and then make up my mind. And maybe by that time they'll have the G7 for the iPhone. Who knows? Right.
Yeah. We'll see. Okay.
Or maybe not. I mean, I'm being overly optimistic there.
I don't know. It's got it. Like, obviously there's a lot about the process that we don't understand.
Right.
That's what I think. Because when people are like, why don't they just, or how come it takes so long or whatever, I'm like, I don't know. What do you think they're like sitting in the office, like playing ping pong and going like, I don't know, should we get back to it? You know what I mean? Like it's my assumption is they're working as fast and as hard as they can. And this is how long
absolutely.
it takes, you know? So
right.
Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're playing ping pong. I have no idea. I'm just saying it makes sense to me the one way that it's weird to complain about stuff like that. Like as if the company is like, nah, screw it. Yeah.
No, I mean, and you know, having type 1 for 30 years, like I'm just so thankful that we're at where we're at. Like,
yeah,
it's so much different from, you know, the days of my exchange diet and RNN. So I'm grateful that we have these choices now, right?
Came pretty far, pretty fast with the technology. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Are you,
Absolutely.
And you're using which pump now?
Omnipod 5.
You're
automated.
Omnipod 5. Okay.
Yep.
Right. For sure.
Yep.
Like it's funny because even though that's what we've been talking about, like when you said about the kids, you're like, I don't know, maybe we should get them like a T-Slim or something. I'm like, it's interesting that you didn't suggest the pump that you use.
Well, here's my reason why. Because you have to know their doctors. Their doctors are all very anti-Omnipod, unfortunately. Now, I have a couple of the kids are on Omnipods and they're independent and they're doing fantastic. In fact, one of my boys who's actually in 10th going into 11th grade now, he did not have very good control at all as a freshman. And he switched to the Omnipod 5 last summer. Mm-hmm. And he is doing so much better. I'm so proud of him because he was a kiddo who just didn't want to ever, he had to have a private spot to take his shots, a private spot to eat food if he needed it or whatever. And now he's just like, oh, I'm done. I'm good. I can go. You know what I mean? And so I love it for him. And I love it for my other young man who's on it. Like they're both doing fantastic. But unfortunately, the kiddos who I really think could benefit from the pump all have one certain doctor in my state who is, every time their parents bring up pumps, the only one he mentions is T-Slim because I think it's because it's what he's comfortable with type of thing.
Yeah, happens all the time.
And, you know, and to me, I mean, both work well. I like both. For me, the Omnipod works better. And so if I had my choice, yeah, I'd be pushing them all to the Omnipod. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I have better control on the Omnipod. I had a lot of trouble on T-Slim. I could never dial in my settings enough overnight, or I would dial them in too much, or I don't know how to explain it, but like I would go low at least once a week to where I'd have to wake up and get something. That doesn't happen on the Omnipod for me. I get sleep. It's fantastic. Yeah. And I'm not going that high either. You know, I might go up to like 120, but it's not horrible. And I come right back down to around 90 to 110 type of thing. You know, but I'm seeing that in the morning when I wake up and look at the graph. I don't have to wake up and get myself there. Mm-hmm. So
talk to people a little bit about how important that is. That you've 30 years in the sleep. Mm-hmm. Seriously, like the sleep part. Like, how has that changed your life?
Amazing. It changed my life. I mean, I'll be honest. I was never one. You know, as a teenager when I was first diagnosed, it's not like my parents were very supportive. Don't get me wrong, but they didn't wake up and check me at like 2 a.m. or something like that. It was just, you know, hopefully she's okay. As soon as I started wearing a CGM and being a little bit more mature myself and finger pricking more reliably in the middle of the night just to see where I was at, you know, I might be 40 one night, I might be 190 another night, and I'd have to either eat or take insulin. Then you don't get that right back to sleep. It's not like you suck down your juice box and go right to sleep because you have to wait for those numbers to come up. And sleep is so wonderful. I don't know how to explain it. Mm-hmm. I function better. I'm able to not have to take a nap after work. I'm able to, you know, cook and clean and work and exercise and play with my dog and all of that without going, I just want to sit on the sofa because I didn't sleep last night. Yeah.
Anyway, it's really important. And where's your A1C at right now? Like, how are your outcomes?
It's been between like a 5.4 and a 5.6 for about the 3 years that I've been on Omnipod now. And
do you have an eating style that's specific or no?
Honestly, no. I'm not low carb. I'm not keto. I'm not somebody who's going to go to a fast food restaurant every day because I don't think it's healthy, but I just eat what I would call a normal diet. You know, right. I might have some eggs and maybe a piece of toast in the morning and maybe some soup and fruit for lunch and a snack mid-afternoon if I'm hungry. If not, supper is usually like tonight for supper it's in the crock pot, but it's just, I didn't feel like cooking today. It's 90 degrees here in Michigan, so I'm not cooking right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no kidding.
But I just threw some chicken and cheese and rice in the crock pot. It's simmering, and we'll have that tonight.
So you could do 70 or more carbs a day, no problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
What there's an ad for Omnipod. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Like, seriously, that's an Omnipod 5 ad right there. That's fantastic. And your activity level can't be, no offense, can't be great. You're sitting in a school all day.
No, it's not. I mean, I would love to say I exercise, 5 days a week. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. And what I call my fake job, I do breed and show dogs, which is weird. And I'm not going to get into all of that, but I have to keep the dogs in shape. So I will take them for walks and things like that daily, but we're talking like a mile, maybe. It's not hard running or anything like that. It's not anything huge.
How many dogs have you had in your lifetime?
Oh, that's a great question. I honestly don't know. A lot. It's something I was born into. I currently have 7.
Okay. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
This is going to feel like a big left turn. Don't bum out on me, okay?
No, you're good.
All right, Trisha, hold tight with me, okay?
Okay.
We have to put our oldest dog down tomorrow.
I was worried you were going to ask me that. Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
How do you know you're doing the right thing?
I think if you feel like it's time, it's the right thing. If you know that your dog isn't having the quality of life that makes your dog happy, and that when you look at your dog, you feel more sad than happy, then you kind of know it's the right time.
That's good advice. Okay. He's over 16 years old, first of all.
Aww.
And he's had a great life, and it's been a fantastic, genuinely wonderful pet. Great companion for everybody. And over the last, couple of years, walking's gotten harder for him. But in the last year, it's more difficult. He needs a ramp to go downstairs now.
Right.
He is incontinent. Like he has sundowners. Like in the
right.
2 cataracts, can't see, can't hear. You approach him, you scare the crap out of him when you're standing next to him and talking to him. And there's no life in his face anymore. Like he doesn't seem to go from happy to sad to tired or anything like that. He just stares a lot.
Yeah,
it's hard.
You're getting pretty close. I mean, this sounds horrible, and it's not to make you upset, but when they get to that point, in my opinion, it's not a day too early, but it could be a day too late.
Yeah,
what I mean by that is if you wait too long, then they're suffering, right?
Yeah.
And we're lucky enough to be able to do that for our pets. So I
appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, that's the mindset we've taken. We've gotten advice from a number of places, taken all the online quizzes. And then in the end, you start having that thought, like what you just said, like if tomorrow's too soon, but next Thursday's too late,
right?
What are we trading exactly? And
exactly.
Yeah. So it seems like it becomes more about you than them.
Yep.
Yeah. We're trying not for that to happen. Anyway, we've arranged someone to come to the house and do it.
Oh, good. Yeah. We're
going to bury him here on our property too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are the kids home right now?
They are. That's another reason why.
And that's good.
Yeah. We tried to imagine doing this when like Arden was in college or something, and it just felt like crazy. Like, what, we're going to just call her and tell her we had to put Indy to sleep, and like she can't do anything about that with those feelings. She's stuck there by herself, and it just felt like even at that, like even if now while she's home, even if he could maybe stretch it out a couple of more months, it might be more detrimental to him and to other people to wait. It's just such a strange thing,
It's hard. It's one of those hard decisions. And I think, this is going on another tangent, but you stay with me now. So,
okay.
My grandma, who lived with us my whole life, died of cancer when I was in my early 20s. And she looked at me about a week before she passed. And she said, if I was a dog, you and your dad would have put me out of my suffering by now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a straightforward lady.
But I mean, she was right. I mean, we would have.
Did you take all the pencils from her then when she said that? We're like, whoops.
Yeah, we cleared her bed,
Well, I was going to say something similar without the anecdote about my grandmother. when my mom was done, I was like, let's get her out of this as fast as we can.
Yep.
And for some reason, when it's my dog, I was like, I don't know, he could probably hang on a little longer. And I think the difference in those initial reactions, because I've come around on Indy, but I think the difference in the initial reactions is that my mom could communicate with me. And so I was sure this is right. And whereas with him, I'm like, what if I'm just misinterpreting this? That's the fear. But I'm beyond that now. I think we're pretty sure we're doing the right thing.
Take it from me as somebody who, well, this is another tangent, but I was literally born because a veterinarian figured out how to keep my mom pregnant. My mom had a lot of miscarriages before I was born.
Really?
So, for real.
Is your mom like a Cocker Spaniel, or what's going on there?
No, my mom's a human being.
Oh, okay. Makes more sense.
My mom would have miscarriages in her second trimester, which is unusual, right? Like normally if you get through the first trimester, you're good to go. And her OBGYN could not figure out why. And she and my dad were heartbroken. And personally, I don't know why they kept trying. Like, I guess I'm glad. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad I'm here. But
like they should have gave up.
The wrong way.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Don't worry. I understand.
I mean, just as a woman, if that had been me, I would have just given up and either adopted or just said, I'm not having kids or whatever. Right. So my dad at the time was doing some research with a veterinarian where dogs were basically, they call it reabsorption in dogs, but it's a miscarriage, right? Like they're pregnant and then they're not, and they never have the puppies. And what they found out in the dogs is that the dogs' levels of progesterone were dropping dangerously low. And that's why the puppies were not making it to term.
Okay.
So my mom went to her OBGYN and I was born at like a hospital that specialized in difficulties. and they gave her more progesterone and she was able to carry me to term.
I'll be damned. That's crazy. Yeah. I also want to point out that I wasn't saying that we put my mom to sleep.
No, I know.
But,
I know.
but I will say this, and I have no trouble saying this. She was in hospice on morphine, and they give her a certain amount. She was clearly not going to wake up. And if she woke up, she was going to wake up to having cancer throughout her body again. And it wasn't happening anyway. Trust me. And when I had to leave where she was, but my one brother stayed behind. And I said to him on the way out, hey, they gave you that button for extra morphine. You're allowed to push it every 5 minutes.
Yep.
I was like, push it every 5 minutes. Like, I'm so sorry I can't do it, but like sit here and push that goddamn button all day. Get her her out of this, you know? And seriously, then a year, do you know, I can't believe this is happening, but Indy's going to pass of our choosing on the first anniversary of my mom's passing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The timing's just insane. Like I called and I was like, I need an appointment. You know, it should be this week, blah, blah, blah. Person picks the date. I look on the calendar and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. It was such a long, you breed dogs? How lovely.
You're like, that's nice. Give me some advice.
Right? No, I would imagine. Is it not easy to have for dogs to have sex and make puppies, or is there something to it?
It depends on the dog.
Really?
For real.
Oh my God. Can you
so
imagine?
my dogs, it's no problem. They're like, I have beagles and Alaskan Malamutes, which I don't breed them together. Like they stay apart, but I was born into Malamutes and I got involved in beagles when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
For my particular breeds, it's not an issue. Like, you know, the girl comes and the boy gets excited and they do what dogs do. But for some breeds, like bulldogs, for example, they can't do it naturally because they're not built to do it naturally. Like the girls are too small to take the male in.
Holy hell, this took a turn. Go ahead.
I'm like, how do I go?
I don't know. It's a special genre, though, of whatever we're talking about.
Yes. So there are certain breeds of dogs that it is not done naturally, and that they don't birth the puppies naturally because the puppies are like their heads are too big to come out.
So a bulldog is an example of this, right?
Yes, a bulldog is an example.
Like if we stop breeding bulldogs, they wouldn't exist in one generation.
Well, it might take a couple. I mean, you might have some really determined ones.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
A real bulldog.
Right.
Yeah. Really know how to get in there. I hear what you're saying. Okay. When does it stop being weird? What? How many years into it until you're like, oh, I'm like a pornographer for dogs? Like, seriously, when does it just become like really like old hat natural to you?
It is already. I mean, I was born into it, right? Yeah. So like, this is a horrible story, but it's funny. Like when I go out with what I call my dog friends, right? Like if we're at a show and we go out to dinner or something like that, the poor waitresses are shocked at some of the crap we're talking about, but it's just natural. It's dinner conversation.
All right, I don't want to hear it.
No, I'm not going to share it with you.
You don't have to do anything that they have to do when they breed horses, right? You're not like that involved, are you?
I have been, yes.
Oh my goodness. Trisha, thank you for telling me that. I appreciate this. I don't know what this episode is going to be called, but I think there's going to be a euphemism in the title, that's for sure. Actually, I wouldn't know how to do that. I don't think I could get that past the censors, you know what I mean?
I'll email you some phrases that we use. I'll say I don't want to say them on air.
You don't want to say any of them? Give me one. Just what's your favorite one?
Give me a minute to think. I don't know.
Take your time.
I don't know.
We'll go back to the diabetes while you're chatting.
Yeah. Go back to the diabetes. That's easier right now.
Okay. Watch this as I just move effortlessly from what I think is a...
Well, you know what? I had a dog with diabetes there.
I mean, I'm getting ready to like pivot from like what I think is you telling me about manually manipulating a dog to like your note here that says, I want to talk about my boys and our school adventures this year. So.
Oh, that sounds bad.
Yeah, I could have probably paced this differently. I apologize. But let's just get past that. It's homecoming. My day started with one of my boys having a low blood sugar seizure at the bus stop.
Oh, God, yeah.
What happened
this
there?
This one was interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, so much happened on homecoming, Scott. You don't even want to know.
No, I think I do want to know because but tell me seriously, what happened at homecoming?
So I'm just going to call him D because I don't want to use his name.
Of course.
D has a seizure waiting for his bus. His mom calls me in a panic because I work in a school that, let's just say, is not very high socioeconomic status, right? So like parents don't have cars to get to their kids to assist with these types of things.
I see.
Okay. You know, I go driving over there. I dial 911 on the way because I don't want this kid dying. And, you know, I get there around the same time EMS does. And he's no longer seizing, but he's definitely unconscious. The EMS workers who they're fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Like, we have some great people in our city here. You know, they're looking at me and I'm like, he has type 1. He's really low. I don't know what his number is. I need to find his phone, but just shoot him with some D50 now. You know, like just take my word on it. Mm-hmm. So they get him out of it. I call mom back, let her know he's okay. And she was like, well, do they have to take him to the hospital? I said, well, that's up to you. Here, talk to the people. Like, they're willing to let him come to school, but they kind of need you to get here. Do you have a way here? You know, because legally I can't drive him back to school. She was able to find a ride from a neighbor and got there, and he came to school.
But so you were able to get him a ride to school?
So we were able to get him to school. He's doing all right. Meanwhile, another kiddo I had, who we'll call T, who was a recent transplant to our school. He came here from another state, didn't know this kid real well. He was in 12th grade, but he was not well controlled at all. He didn't have the means to take care of himself. You know, he had a very sad situation. He moved back in with his mom, but his mom had lost custody of him when he was younger. He'd been living with a family member who passed away. So he's dealing with all of that. And his blood sugar was usually high, sometimes low, just roller coastery. Mm-hmm. We had a pep assembly. It was in the gym because it was raining. I was standing kind of by one of the walls in the gym, watching the kids do whatever they do during pep assemblies, bands and cheerleaders and all of that stuff. And so T comes up to me and he's like, I don't feel good. And I was like, well, what do you mean you don't feel good? Well, I think I need to go to the bathroom. I might need to throw up. And I said, okay. So I said, let me go out there with you. So he goes into the bathroom, takes about 5 minutes, comes out. I was like, why don't you check your blood sugar for me? So he checks and it just reads high. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
I said,
I know why you're throwing
okay.
Up. Yeah. Figured that part out.
I said, I'm thinking you have some ketones. I said, when was the last time you took your insulin? Because this is a kid who just would forget to take his insulin. And it's about 10:30 in the morning at this point. He was like, I think yesterday at lunch when you made me.
Wow.
Okay, great.
Jesus. And is that a pump or an MDI?
MDI.
Yeah. So do we even know,
Yep.
does the person are they even shooting their basal insulin? Probably, right?
Right. Probably not.
Probably not. Oh, geez.
So I try to get hold of his mom. Remember I told you she had lost custody earlier in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I call a couple times and all I'm getting is voicemail. And I'm like, Bud, do you remember, like, where's mom? Is she at work? Where's she at? And he was like, oh, she went to a party. Okay.
I need more parties during the day. Trisha, I got to be honest with you. I've never been to a 11 a.m. party in my life, but it sounds amazing.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And it was a Friday, so I'm trying to think the best thoughts. Like maybe she was going to a wedding or something, and they were I'm trying to think positive thoughts about this.
Look at you, a little this is water in you. I see it. Let's just think the best of people. I like that. I try to ride like that myself. Go ahead.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, buddy, is there she's the only person on his emergency card. I was like, is there somebody else? Because school is going to get out in half an hour and I am not comfortable sending you home because you have high ketones. Your blood sugar is over 600. I kind of want to call 911, but at the same time, I don't want to do that without knowing there's somebody to pick you up when you get out of this. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, and so he was like, well, one of my cousins goes to, and he named a different school in town. You can try her mom. I said, okay, do you have her number? And he's not thinking clearly at this time for obvious reasons. And he's like, well, I don't know. I said, well, give me your phone. What's her name? Let me try to find this person. And so I get hold of, like, it would be like his step aunt, I guess I would say. Like, it's not a biological person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, look, do you have a way to get hold of his mom to get permission? 911, I said, I think he really needs some IVs right now. Like he needs fluids, he needs insulin, and I'm not equipped to do that at this time with his shot. Like he needs more than I can do. I can't give the fluids. I said, can you get hold of his mom and tell her that she needs to get hold of me? Like, here's my cell phone, here's my work phone, help me out. And she was like, yep, I will. So I wait. I did call 911. I wait like 2 hours. The woman finally calls me back. And then chews me out because I interrupted her day.
Well, she was at a party.
Yeah.
And, once you get that vibe going.
I know.
It's hard to get it back sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you feel in the music and you're like, it's right there in your hips. And then somebody like comes up and harshes your vibe. And then all of a sudden, what are you supposed to do? Just go find it again? It's difficult.
Well,
Trisha, why don't you try thinking about other people sometimes? Okay. Can you imagine? I would just be like, oh, no, it's okay. You're welcome.
Right.
No good deed. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, this day after school, you could be home.
I could be.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
No. You could have been like, hey, kid, good luck. Hope you don't die. See ya. I got to go watch The Price is Right. But not you. No, you're trying to help. I see. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what to say. I do like you telling this story because I get worried sometimes that some of the people listening could think like, oh, the world I live in where I chase down my 5.4, my 6.3 A1C, and I'm, I didn't know how to do this, but then I found a podcast and I got better at it and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think they think that's how everybody is. But most people are the story you're telling with diabetes. It's sad, but a lot of people are living really tightrope kind of lives with their health. And I appreciate you telling the story. And I appreciate you sticking up for the kid and doing something. It's nice,
Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you so much. And there we go. But what I was going to start telling you was what this did. You have to hear this part because yes, it's kudos to you. But so this whole homecoming episode.
I didn't know I was going to get some kudos. Go ahead.
You're going to get some kudos, Scott. So this whole homecoming episode, I went, how am I going to help these kids? Because I can't live like this. I can't worry as much as I'm worrying about these children.
Sure.
And so I started making them listen to the podcast during what we call, it's like a study hall. I won't say what we call it because then you might know where I work. But like we have 2 days a week, we have a study hall. Okay. So my children would come down to my office and I just play them random little podcast episodes. And then we started diving into like the ones that are actually educational, but I had to get them with some entertaining ones first.
How entertaining?
Well, we weren't talking about like dog manipulation.
Well, thank God, because I think that'd get you fired, if I'm being honest. But I mean, honestly, I like you, and I think I'd have you kicked out if you were doing that. I'd be like, Trisha seems okay, but she's unstable. Listen to what she's telling the kids. Did they take something from it?
And so most of them did. In fact, one of them, kind of funny. So I feel bad for this kid. And like, this sounds horrible, but in my brain, if he just had like parents who, I don't know, were more capable of understanding, he'd be so much better off.
Mm-hmm.
But, his parents are a little bit older, and his dad has type 2 and doesn't seem to really understand the difference between type 1 and type 2. So anyway, to make a long story short, this kid went from like averaging about 220 at lunchtime and about, I don't know, 250 on the bus ride home to now he's down to about 130 to 160.
Mm-hmm.
So he took it to heart because he was given the tools, to learn better how to take care of himself. He just wouldn't be bolus. Like if he had like a fat or protein rise, he didn't understand that he needed to maybe take a little bit more when that was happening. Yeah. Right.
Wow. Wait, so tell me where he started and where he ended up.
So beginning of the year, he was consistently 220 to 250, sometimes even 300.
Okay.
And so now, school's out now for the kids, but, a week ago was our last day, very consistently, like 120 to 160.
Oh, my goodness. Isn't that great?
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. Yep.
It's a shame you can't listen to this because of the filth you talked about in the middle, but
I'll just fast forward.
But I'd love to say congratulations. That's really something.
Yeah. And they didn't all have that big of a, not all of them, but he really took it to heart. Another one of the kiddos was a little bit, I shouldn't say different, but just different from what most people experience, I think. He was diagnosed 3 years ago, and his honeymoon lasted about 2.5 years. Like, it lasted forever. And so he was a kid who at the beginning of the year was always taking 1.5 units of insulin for about 36 to 40 grams of carbs. And his blood sugar was always like 90 to 120. I mean, it was beautiful, but it was not where he ended up at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, he just started creeping up like higher and higher to some days where he was mid to high 200s. And then he would crash. He would go down to about 40. And it was just very much a roller coaster. He's on MDI, but he does have a Dexcom. He was one at the beginning of the year that was like, I don't need the podcast. Like, I'm perfect anyway, right? But then when he started coming out of his honeymoon, he would come down to my office if he got done with his lunch early and be like, hey, can you turn on another episode for me of one of those like pro tip series? Because I need to figure this stuff out, still. And I'd be like, okay, no problem.
Kidding. How old?
14.
Oh, isn't that great?
It was awesome.
Trisha, you made my day.
Oh,
actually.
Good.
I took it in the ass today from the internet, and this was nice to hear.
Well, I'm glad I could help.
Yeah. No, seriously, it's very helpful because, I don't listen to people.
Right.
It's fine if they want to say whatever they want to say, right? It's all fine. But somebody in one of those private Facebook groups, they keep lying about Arden.
They're touching your kid.
And and I took it for a while, but I was like, I'm going to swing back now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I put up a little thing today this will be 6 months old by the time people hear it. Right. So good luck finding it. But, I just made it very clear that, if you're going to lie, whatever. It's fine. But like, stay pointed at me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm your target. You don't like me, which is fine. And I told them, Trisha, I was very eloquent in my note.
Right.
But what I said was, I told them that I know they think they're surrounded by their followers, but a lot of those people think they're crackpots and frequently send me complete screenshots of the horrible things and lies that they say.
Right.
And that I know they think in their little Facebook group that gets a post or two a day and there's a couple people in it, they think that that's the whole world. If I expose them to the public, they're going to understand what the spotlight really means. So this podcast has an insane reach.
Absolutely.
And I have every horrible thing they've ever said screenshotted, and I'd be happy to make it public if they don't stop. I was much more eloquent when I said it in writing.
I'll have to go find it when we're done.
Yeah. I mean, I'd read it to you. Here, I'll tell you what, for fun, I can give you the last bit of it. Give me a second here. I got to make a click on something here. Now, it built, by the way, it was very thoughtful at the beginning, and it's really very contextual and gives a whole full feeling. And then at the end, it said this: the next person who lies about my kid in their private Facebook group or lies about what I share about diabetes is going to find out what it means to be called out on a worldwide podcast. Trust me, it won't be as low impact as when you talk your slanderous shit on your beat-ass little Facebook group that no one sees. You think you're in this game, but you're not. But keep up your shit, and you will be. And I bet that you can't take it. Take some advice from someone who actually knows what it means to be in the spotlight. Your unstable little nut will crack real fast when the public calls you out. Right now, you're in a one-sided war. Don't drag me into it, because if you get me started, I'm going to win. My best advice is to shut your mouth. I know you think you're in some little safe place surrounded by your people, but newsflash, a number of them think you're a crackpot, and they send me a lot of screen captures. One day, one of you is going to push me past my significant ability to turn the other cheek. Be clear, I will post your words just as you type them for the world to see, and I actually reach people. That wet match of yours doesn't want this flame war. Now, I finished here, Trisha. I said, now crawl back into your hole, scumbag, and don't mention my daughter again. And to your minions, if you leave my group today, I won't include you in this if it blows up. Stay, and you're all fair game. You've all sucked the master's teat in writing, and I have those screen caps too. Now, f*** off and tell your leader what I said.
Do you hear me clapping?
Two-pointed, Trisha. How'd I do?
Very good. 10 out of 2. You did great.
Tired of motherfuckers. Jesus Christ. And by the way, I want to be very clear. To say that it's not 99.9% of people is even like an understatement.
Right.
It's barely a tenth of a percent.
Yeah, but when you pick on somebody's child, that's different. That changes all the rules. I mean,
yes, but also, don't lie.
Right.
There's plenty of things you could say about me to make your point that would be 100% true. Why make something up? And it's all the time, goes back years. I'll never forget this one lady. And by the way, I have your screen cap still too, honey. I'll never forget this one lady who told what they call, I don't know, Yiddish, a Bubameister, made up a whole story about how they know me personally. And behind the scenes, I quietly take money from people to set up their blood sugars. And I'm like, I've never done that in my entire life. I don't even know what they're talking about. So I read what she wrote to this person, and I swear to you, it's paragraphs of just make-believe.
Oh my goodness.
And when you really look at what she was doing, and again, this one was years ago.
Right.
This is not this happens to me. I'm a duck's back. I don't care. You know what I mean? But you shouldn't mention my kid. And so this stuff goes on and on forever, and I'm used to it. It's by the way, the same group of people over a decade. I know they all must think that they're the pinnacle of their space, but trust me, there's been lunatics that came before you that are gone, and you'll be gone one day too. What I realized when I read this one paragraph was all this person was trying to do was to defame me to keep this other person in their Facebook group. That's all they care about is not letting you out of their group. Because if you because if you go somewhere else and find out what a bunch of lunatics they are, you're not coming back. And it's some bizarre power move that I mean, and Trisha, there's no power in being the admin of a Facebook group. No. And if that feels powerful to you, you need a therapist.
It's not powerful. It's just a lot of work. It's not.
And it's one of the things that I enjoy that community so much. I love what it does for people. And the day I don't have to take care of it anymore, I'm going to go on vacation.
Right.
It's such trouble, and not from the good people. It's the tiny percent of
it's that little percentage. I get it. I mean, in my dog world, I'm an admin of a Facebook group that does not reach nearly as many people as you do, but I've wanted to quit several times.
No, it's insane. Have an opinion. It's fine. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't even mind. Come tell me I'm wrong. The problem is that when they get cornered and there's nowhere else to go, and you kind of are look, you're being mean to people because Trisha, you listen long enough. I don't give a how people eat. I don't care what you do. Take care of yourself. Whatever you want to do. I couldn't care less. Here's what I do. If it works for you, God bless. And if you're not interested, I couldn't possibly care less. It's fine. Just it's fine. But my God, they want to rant and rave. They want to tell people what to do. They want to make fun of people for the way they eat. And if you don't let them, then they run back into their hidey hole and then tell all their little minions that you kicked them out and you wouldn't let them be there. I'm like, I didn't kick you out. I just said be nice to people. And then you over and over again couldn't be nice to people. And I eventually had to say to you, please leave. I didn't even kick you out. I said, please leave.
Right.
You're never going to meet a person in charge of a community who tries as hard to include everybody as I do.
Absolutely. No, I agree. 100%. Yeah.
The people in my life who see it, like, and I don't just mean family members, I mean people who help behind the scenes are like, why are you trying so hard to save this unsavable person? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it just feels wrong to like exclude them. And I want it to be everybody, but man, it's hard. Like in a world where everybody's trying to section you up into a team so you can go fight with somebody.
Right.
Like I'm the one who's like, everybody come on in. It's fine.
Right.
You know, and then every time you try to like move things forward, can I rant a little longer, Trisha?
Go right ahead, Scott.
Okay, thank you. I mean, you talked about what you talked about, the dog thing, and I feel like I have a little latitude here now. You know what I mean? Every time I try to push it farther a little bit, it starts over again with a new group of people. And what do I mean by that? Like, when I started blogging, I was just like, look, I don't know what I'm talking about. My daughter's having these terrible outcomes. I'm following the doctor's advice. And then I figure some things out. And I start writing and I'm like, hey, I think if you do this, this happens. And, you know, if you put your insulin on a little earlier before food and you really find the balance between the food and the insulin, like you don't really get a spike. And like you can see me in the blog talking it through.
Right.
And that blog was, dude, that blog got so millions of clicks a year for years. I never sold an ad on it because it wasn't that hard. I sat down and I wrote, I put it up. It wasn't a ton of time out of my, not a lot of skin off my ass. And so like I could do it as a hobby. Back then you couldn't even make money off. Like, it was like Google AdSense. Like you'd put this ad up and like it was in the way and everybody hated it. And at the end of the month, like Google sent you $43. I'm like, what am I doing?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I can go
Yeah.
panhandle $43 if I try hard enough. No, right? I wouldn't do that anyway. The podcast is so much work that I had to start taking ads. Now, it is not my fault it's popular. I mean, like people are like, oh my God, there's so many ads. Well, yeah, it's really popular. But I still won't put more than 3 ads on an episode. You know how many people would? You know how many people would stack that money? Not me. I stopped at 3. I turned 3 people down this month. All they have is money in their hand and they want to buy ads. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't put more ads in the podcast. Right. Anyway, ignore that part of the good-natured person I am. Like, skip right to the part where you say you're pushing carbs on people. I'm like, I don't even tell people how to eat. If you put up a picture of a cinnamon bun in my group and say, how many carbs do you think this is? I'm the crazy person who lets people answer you and go, I don't know, it seems like it might be this many.
Right.
Like, what they want is for me to say, you're a horrible person. You shouldn't eat like that. And you're poisoning your kid and die. And you should, like they want to admonish people. They want to admonish people they don't agree with.
But the other thing is that they don't understand that for kids. And I'm interrupting and I apologize, but they don't understand that for kids, especially. I mean, I work with kids every day, right? So kids, in my opinion, if you tell them how to eat, they're going to do the opposite at some point. And they need to know how to cover it no matter how they go, right? So, and that's what you do. You teach them how to cover it.
I don't even get into half of those posts. I by the time like people do it, I don't have to.
I didn't say you. I mean your group. The group.
Yeah. No, Trisha, you're with me. Don't worry, you're doing good. And it's the diabetes equivalent of religion, in so much as that it's like this is the rule. Don't break the rule. And I would point out to those people, if we can make the comparison. How does it go when you tell kids, for example, don't have sex till you're married?
They're going to go out and find somebody to have sex with.
I mean,
what
stop
they do.
it. Forget kids. How about life?
Right.
How about people? You think people do well being told not to do something? No. And just because you have the answer that worked for you, which, by the way, would work for a lot of people. You don't hear me discounting it. Less insulin, fewer lows, fewer scary incidents, fewer times you got to correct with food, fewer times you might get high again. Listen, law of average, no low numbers, whatever they say there, like it's hard to argue with. Like, and you wouldn't catch me arguing with it. I understand it. But you can't just say to people, I found the right way, now you do it. That's a cult.
Right.
Like people have what they call autonomy and they can do whatever they want. And in a world where some of them might have a cinnamon bun, should we really just write them off? Why don't we help them understand how to bolus for it?
Right.
Like maybe they'll come to the rest of it later. But this is all wasted, Trisha, because they're not listening to this podcast. Because if they did, they'd probably agree with me.
Probably.
They just vilify me so that they can get into one of their DJ battles where they're like, the guy over at 97.5, he's an idiot. We're the good ones. Wubba, wubba, wubba. And then like it's a false war. It's a one-sided false war that they do to try to keep their people feeling like they're on the right side. And what I'm telling them is, and please be clear, don't drag me into your one-sided false war.
Right.
Okay? Because I'll fight back. And you won't just be in this little fun game where you badmouth me and you hold on to a couple people in your shitty little Facebook group that nobody's a part of. And I didn't mean to sound elitist there, but my Facebook group has 50,000 people in it. It gains 150 new people every 3 days, and yours gets 3 posts a day.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Trisha, do you know how many mine gets?
I couldn't even count
posts?
them. I don't know.
125 a day. 8,000 hearts and comments every 24 hours. Do you know the down hours of the group? There are none because you're worldwide. There are people in there. Right. 20. God damn, who says that? What's one of that guy who yells worldwide all the time in his songs? I hate him. Sorry. Well, what's his name though? Who is it? I don't. He says his name all DJ Khaled, yeah. Right? No, wait. No. DJ Khaled's not worldwide. Mr. Worldwide. Mr. Worldwide is
You're gonna have to come up with it. I'm bad at
I'll figure it out.
To songs.
Don't worry. You're not into this. I understand. You're very with the dogs. You're a lot of your time is taken up. All right, Mr. How did I not know this? Pitbull.
Oh, there you go. I should have known that, right?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Trisha, what are we going to call the episode?
Pitbull. There you go.
Pitbull. We're all done. All done. That's it. Say goodbye. We're finished. Okay. That's it. Also, it's a skill and a talent to take completely unrelated things, make them connect to each other, and wrap them up tightly in an hour and 10 minutes. And
you nailed it. So there you go.
Yeah, oh my God. I'm so good at this. So anyway, my point to those people would be, if you don't like what I'm saying, fair enough. You go say your thing, and all the people who agree with you will follow. And what I'm trying to tell you is that my podcast has about 20 million downloads and 50,000 active users in its Facebook group. And your thing looks like the people I don't know, like nothing. Like it looks like a tiny percentage of the people that I interact with. And keep a bigger picture here. I barely interact with a percentage of people who have diabetes.
Right.
Like I reach a pitiful percentage of people with type 1 diabetes. Imagine what you're reaching. No one. It's you and your 5 lunatic friends. Jesus Christ. Speaking of jerking each other off, you know what I mean, Trisha? Look at me. I did it again.
I hear you.
Fucking pulled it together again, Trisha. God damn it. My references are tight as hell today. Damn. God damn. I ought to get paid for this. Oh, wait. I do. All right. If I rubbed it in long enough, you think they got it?
I think they got it. I hope they got it.
Yeah.
You know.
Can I quote Will Smith?
Go for it.
It seems wrong, but keep my fucking daughter's name out of your motherfucking mouth. There you go. How's that?
That's good. That's good.
All right, we're having a good time here, Trisha.
Yes.
What did we miss? Anything? You're like, please don't drag me into this. I always feel bad for the people who come on days like this.
Well, I'll be honest, because I knew something was going on. Like before I logged in, I saw that you had posted just a really long post and I didn't have time to read it. You know what I mean? I was like, oh boy, it's not going to be okay for this podcast. And you were great. So don't worry about it. It was fun.
Oh, no, trust me. It gave me good energy. They don't understand how I work. This was good for me. Yeah, you don't want to listen, let me be clear. I grew up poorly. Right. Okay. I was not parented well. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. Don't fuck with me. I have a gear you don't have. Right. Okay. Right. Like that's it. Like I'm not going to hurt anybody, and I'm not going to defame anybody or slander anybody, but I got your words and I'm not afraid. So be real careful is all I'm saying. Like, because if I get pushed over that line, Trisha, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go into attack mode and then it ain't going to stop. And then you're going to find out what happens when people who all feel like this podcast has saved their life think you're upset and treating me poorly.
Right.
I've seen it happen before. I want to say this. This isn't what's the word I'm looking for? This is not a threat. I've literally seen this happen before. There was this time before I had a Facebook group where someone asked a question in a Facebook group, and I happened to be up one morning and I saw it, and I popped in and I said like, oh, I don't know what I said. It doesn't matter anymore. Like I gave what I thought was my answer. And at the end of it, I said like, if this didn't make sense or anything, like, let me know, I'll see if I can be more clear. And I was like, the admin banned me off of the comments because at the end I said like, ask me if you have any follow-ups. I think they thought I was asking them to like DM me or something, which I even, as a Facebook owner now, I understand, right? Yeah. So this person just bans me from the group, and I'm like, I don't realize that because I'm not incessantly checking the group. Right? I answered this person, right? Well, like a half an hour later, I get a message from somebody online, like they kicked you out of that Facebook group. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. I wonder why that happened. This has got to be like, I don't know. This has got to be 5-10 years ago. No, it's longer. It's got to be 10 years ago, maybe before the podcast even. Right. And I was like, I responded to the person. I said, that's very nice of you. I don't know what happened, but obviously they have a reason. Like, I'm like, whatever, like, I don't care. And I said, but thanks for letting me know. I swear to you, I didn't say any more than that. And this is back just when I had a blog. Okay. 45 minutes later, I'm not lying to you, I get another DM through Facebook. Do you know who it is?
The owners of the...
It's the admin of the group that kicked me out. And this note says, I wish I had it, says, I'm so sorry that my other like co-admin or something didn't realize who you were and kicked you out. I'm like, who am I? I'm like, nobody. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, what? Like, so I'm looking at this like rambling apology, right? I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, who even cares? And so I messaged the person back and I'm like, listen, I'm not upset. I honestly didn't even realize I was kicked out of your group till like, 15, 20 minutes ago when someone sent me a note. And I just said to them, well, you must have had a reason because I'm not crazy. Right. And so like, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she gets back to me. She goes, oh my God, thank you so much. Would you call me? I'm like, I don't know you, but whatever. So I call the lady. She's lovely and everything, but she's in a panic. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she said, I'm going to let you back in the group. Can you please stop what's happening? And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening.
I don't, right.
Yeah. I'm like, what's happening? And she goes, your people, they're rioting. And I was like, what? So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm like, all right, like, I don't want anything bad to happen to your little Facebook group, So anyways, she lets me back in and holy shit, Trisha. All I saw were people are like, you don't know what that guy did for me. Like it was a lot of that. He saved me. He saved my kid. He saved my A1C. He taught me to do, this was when I was blogging. And I was like, oh my God, look how this is lovely. Awesome. Like it's misguided. And I put I was like, hey everybody, hi, it's me. Calm down. I was like, so I did. I asked everybody, I'm like, look, you guys are very kind to come to my, my rescue here. I didn't need rescuing, but I appreciate it. And please, like this, it was just a mistake. And this lovely lady runs this nice group. Like, please don't trash her.
Like just
don't trash your group. And everybody was like, oh, sorry, no problem. And they all backed out. They took out their blah, blah, and it all went on. Right. My point in telling you that story, which I have never told anywhere before, Trisha, you were the only person right now on the face of the earth that knows this story besides myself and probably my wife.
Well, now I feel good, right? So.
Well, you should. But that was back before I had 20 million podcast downloads.
Right.
I'm saying if I put up the little picture of what your shit fucking face said and people can read it for themselves, I don't have to describe it. I can just go, look, there's a person talking about me out in the world. And I don't think that's right. And put it up there like that. It will not stop.
Right.
You will spend your life defending yourself.
Absolutely.
Or running.
Absolutely.
It's not a threat. I'm just telling you. It's gonna fucking happen because I've seen it happen before. And trust me, the people who are listening right now are like, let's fucking go, Scott. And I'm the only one holding them back.
Right.
So like, yeah, that's all.
No, well, that makes sense because you have helped so many people, and why would they attack your child with lies? It just, I mean, I'm floored at that. So sign me up for the group. When do we go? Like, I mean.
Well, you know what the answer is though, Trisha? The thing they're selling, not a lot of people are buying it.
Right.
And that's probably incredibly upsetting to them. Can I now move to the other side of the courtroom?
Yeah.
Try to imagine you struggled your whole life with your diabetes.
Right.
You could never figure out what was happening before CGMs. You just couldn't get it straight. Every time you ate, your blood sugar shot up. You felt terrible. It took hours to come down. You crashed. You got low. Your family's calling an ambulance for you. You're having a seizure. It's happening over and over and over again. And one day you say to yourself, I'm just going to stop eating carbs. And everything just levels out. Right. And your A1C comes into the 5s. There's no more lows, no more highs. You get that like low carb, like energy that people talk about after I think there's like a flu that comes, some people say, and then the energy comes, right? Yeah. I've been low carb before. I know what it feels like. You get this like, you feel good, And and so now what happened? You were in this horrible place. You thought you were going to die.
And now you're in this beautiful place.
And you think you've got the answer.
Yep.
And then what happens? Now it's religion. Now you're proselytizing. And now anybody who doesn't listen to you doesn't understand. They don't know you know the gospel. You're going to shove it down their throat. And if they don't take it, then they don't deserve to be here on this beautiful planet with the rest of you who understand. And I guarantee you, if one of them heard that, and I don't mean, by the way, I want to be super clear. I don't mean people who eat low carb. I mean 6 fucking lunatics, okay?
No, you mean these people who are running that little group.
These specific people is who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If they heard that right now, they wouldn't see themselves in that statement. But from me to you and to them, I guess, if they're listening, everyone sees you that way except yourself. And the ones who see me the way you do are just you. So what does that tell you? When a handful of people have an idea that so many other people don't hold, and so many other people see you as the problem, but try really, really hard not to condemn you. I watch them all the time. People hold their tongues and not say anything, or they'll send me a note. They're like, this lady's being very rude, or this guy's been like, he's being crazy to people. Like, can you ask him just to be kind? That's all we do, by the way, is just say, hey, can you please be kind? That's it. They don't see that as being unkind. They see it as saving your life. It's my interpretation. I could be wrong, okay? They see it as saving your life, and then that's it. Then they jump and they jump and they attack and they attack. So if somebody doesn't want you to save their life, just say thank you and move on. You don't have to run over them with the boat because they won't grab the fucking floaty. like, Jesus Christ. Like, I'm sorry, this has been derailed.
No, you're fine.
No, I apologize.
I am glad you were able to share. I'm a counselor, remember? So this is natural for me.
Oh, I do need to get this off my back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was good.
I'm not an So but I am a Trisha. So keep going. You're fine.
How you like Erica? She's good, right?
I do. Yeah, she's great.
Cool.
She's great.
Cool. Right now, Erica's like, don't bring my name up right now. What the fuck are you doing?
Erica, I'm passing him off to you when I get off this call. Okay.
Well, I will remind you the way Erica reminds me all the time. Scott, I am not your therapist.
Right.
Oh my God. It's so funny. She's always like, Scott, I'm not your therapist. I'm like, no, I know. I'm not. I know. So funny. All right. Well, listen, you're terrific. I've monopolized your time and I feel badly.
No, you haven't. It's like talking to a friend, right?
Oh, I'm glad. So, and it's very nice of you to be out there helping those kids. Seriously.
Oh, thanks. They're part of the community, right?
I hope that 4 people don't decide that you're a scourge and come after you by making fun of your dogs.
It's fine. You know how you have those people who are their little zealots in their little group and all of that. There's people like that about dogs too, but it's okay. It's all right.
By the way, I've learned this year, this is fascinating. May I go on a little longer? You don't mind if I just keep fucking talking?
You're the one who's hungry and who's watching his daughter just made him lunch.
That's probably part of the problem right now. I am really hungry. I was thinking, oh, wow, how can I be so hungry? I was like, oh, I know how, because my GLP gets shot on Saturdays. So it's getting towards the end of the week. Yeah.
It's almost there. Yeah.
About 8 months ago, this is a long story. I'm not going to give you the whole thing. My kids got me a chameleon.
I have heard that, yes.
Wanted one my whole life, never told anybody, brought it up. The kids jumped into action at Christmas time. I think my wife pushed them. I think, honestly, they would have not done anything had my wife not been like, go to that place and buy this thing.
Right.
Turns out and I knew this, but they didn't. They're much more difficult to take care of than you might expect. Okay. And so I had to literally deep dive into their care because this thing wasn't going to live long if I didn't understand ins and outs of a lot of different aspects of it.
Right.
And so at first I don't know what to do. I'm like, where am I going to learn about this? Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then suddenly I realized there's got to be somebody out there who's me, but for chameleons. Like, right, if I'm me for diabetes, is there probably not a me for chameleons? Like let's go find the Juicebox podcast for chameleons. And you want to know something? There is one.
Yep.
And I found a lovely man who puts a ton of time and attention into passing the good information that he believes worked for him out to other people. And I thought, oh my God, it's even the way he talks about it. Like, he doesn't say this is right. He says, here's what I did. Here's the outcomes I had. And I'm like, my God, he's me. Like, he's literally doing what I'm doing. And then I got to watch as some people came after him for changing like ideas about husbandry for a chameleon. And I can use that word with you because you have dogs and you know what the word, right? You know the word means. Yep. In any other scenario, I would not say the word husbandry because I think it would make me sound like a douchebag. But between you and I, okay.
But when we're talking animals, it's all good. No worries.
Still in all, you know what I mean? Feels like I'm a little too in the cult when I start using the words. And so like, and this man, you know, not knowing me, having never met me, gave me every piece of information I needed so that I could go through it and find a good, capable way of taking care of this chameleon. And when I got done, I thought, oh my God, this is what I do with diabetes for people. Like, I lay out all my ideas. You pick from them which you like.
What works for you.
Exactly. And then you make it work. Even though I'm that kind of like clear about it. Like, I don't care what you do. I'm not going to tell you how to eat. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know, you need as much insulin as you need. Like, I'm not arguing with you about anything about your life, right? I help people with their mental health. Like I'm a full service Stop and Shop. You know what I mean?
You are.
And I look up at the guy, and here he is trying to help people understand a better way to hydrate their chameleons. And and a small group of people treat him like he's committing a war crime. And I'm like, oh my God, those are low carbers. I was like, and not just people. And again, I want to be really clear. I think if you eat low carb and you're doing well with diabetes, like, God bless you. I think if you're doing that and you're online beating people over the head with it and making disparaging lies about their daughter and everything else that comes with it, well, then I think you're an asshole. I want to be very clear, right? Like, and so
absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, and it's like that. It's like that no matter what. You know, I mean, like, it goes back to what you said at the very beginning. If you were Omnipod, why do you think T-Slim for your kid? I think it's so that I don't push the Omnipod too much.
Yeah, right? You're trying to be a reasonable, balanced person. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, there it was. I was like, oh my God, this man and I are doing the same exact thing in two completely different places. We're having the same exact outcomes as far as success, and we're having the same exact troubles as far as outsiders who are angry with us for reasons that really just seem it's because we're saying something that's opposite of what they hold very true. Not that I didn't know this already, Trisha, but then it just really hit me. I was like, oh my God, this is just a human problem. This is just what happens. Yep. It's got nothing to do with chameleons or diabetes
100%.
Or low carb or Apple versus Android. It's got nothing to do with any of that. This is just how people's brains work. Fascinating. No?
It is. No, it is. Because I think when people find something that works for them, some people, like, you can understand just because it works for you, it might not work for somebody else. Like, you understand that. But I think a lot of people haven't reached that point where they can understand that, like, just because it works for me doesn't mean that there's not another way to do it. It's like when you teach kids math. Like, I hate new math. I'll just say that. I can't do new math. I can't do what they're teaching these little children nowadays. I'm a very old school math person. But for the kids where it works for, okay, great. We still got the same answer. Right? We still got 5 or whatever.
Right. What's it matter?
Right. Why does it matter how we got there? As long as we're both in a good spot with what we got.
Yes. See, you and I agree. It doesn't matter how we get there. It's just as long as everybody's okay. All I want from people is for them to be happy and healthy. That's it. However they can get to that, I think is terrific. If I'm not the pathway to that for them, then I did my best, and I'm sorry it didn't work for you. Go find something else.
Go find somebody who you can
No hard feelings.
Learn from.
Yeah,
right.
no hard feelings. Right. The other way of thinking about it, and I know that this feels like very specific to diabetes, but it's really not. It's just very specific to some people. Like some people fall into one category where, I don't know, like the way I see myself is I kind of have like a caregiver's mentality, and I'm very open and I don't care what, I think whatever works for you, works for you. And I think there are some people who still have that caregiver mentality, but they're very stuck on this is the way.
Right.
And then I do think there are also like another section of people who are just trying to be powerful or famous in a space or something like that. And they don't care what they say as long as it gets clicks and likes and some company notices and gives them a job one day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or they can make some money off it selling their coaching or whatever it is they're trying to do. I think there are times when people look at me and they're pissed because I found a way to say everyone's welcome. I don't care what you do. I don't want you to fight with each other. And I pay my bills with it.
Right.
And they're out there and they can't figure out a way to do that.
There's some jealousy out there, I think, for some people with you because they can't do what you're doing.
It's distasteful if I say it, but I do think on some level that has to be true. You know what I mean?
This is a bad comparison, but I've learned more this year. Like I will say, like I currently have a great endocrinologist who is willing to kind of let me care for myself, I guess I would say. And she just writes my scripts and is there if I need her type of thing.
Yeah.
I was in an argument with one of the district nurses who was like, if a kid goes low, they need 15 grams of carbs. And I said, but if one of my kids on an automated pump is at 70, I don't care what the doctor's orders say. If I give him 15 grams of carbs, he's going to be up to 180 in half an hour, 45 minutes because he doesn't need the 15 grams because the pump shut his insulin off, but she can't get it out of her head that, the rule I was taught in 1980 was 15 grams, wait 15 minutes, 15, that whole rule thing that medical people follow.
Yeah.
And so you have, so you get it in every aspect. You have some doctors who they're never going to change that medical plan. It's always going to say 15 grams of carbs the minute that kid hits 70.
Right.
Not paying attention to the fact that it's 70 with a straight arrow and it's been 70 for 3 hours and the kid is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
and even at that, like, even though you're going to run into that, I was interviewing somebody yesterday and lovely person, like really lovely. They were stuck on this one idea. And they were like, I don't understand why people do this. And I kept saying, like, why does it matter? Like, why do you need to understand? Like, it's working for them. Like, she's like, well, it's not. And I'm like, well, okay, then it's not your business. You know what I mean? Like, you did the right thing. You did the Good Samaritan thing. It didn't work out. And like, it's not your job. If you can't let go of that, that's your problem.
Right.
Not theirs. Like, you're not Jesus and you're not here to like save everybody. And it's not your job. And that you did the nice Good Samaritan thing. You said, hey, I think your tire's going flat. And they gave you the finger and fair enough. Okay. Like now that part's over. You don't drive after them for 25 miles yelling out the window. You're going to die. Your tire's flat.
Right.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay. Anyway, don't be crazy. Just, that ain't going to help anybody. That's like saying.
The people who are crazy are going to be crazy no matter if you tell them not to. Okay. Like,
yeah. I just realized that wasn't going to like fix the whole thing. It's like, I'd be like, you have anxiety. Could you stop it? No. Oh, well, try harder.
Okay, well.
Yeah. No, it doesn't work that way. I understand it doesn't work that way, but here's the end result. I'm a nice, kind, measured person, but I didn't grow up well. You don't want to drag me into this.
Right.
I will fight really, really hard. And you won't like how it goes. And if you think, oh, no, I can beat you, Scott, I want you to remember that over 100 people have tried to start a diabetes podcast since I started one 10 years ago. And about 5 of them still exist. And nobody listens to them in comparison to this one. Okay?
Right.
I will win. Trust me. I've got a real competition problem. So, no, I grew up real broke. Don't you worry. And on top of everything else, just to be super serious for a second, thing you're saying is not even true. I mean, I guess if you said something and it was true, I'd understand. But like, why do you have to lie to make your point? Like, just make your point a different way by telling the truth. It's not that hard. I mean, listen to me for the last half an hour. I can be an asshole. Just say that. just say like, I don't know. I listened to the guy's podcast. He seems like a dick. Like, they're fine. That's your opinion. Good enough. Like, there you go. Why you got to say something that's untrue and drag my kid into it?
I mean, because honestly, like when you said, I mean, I listened to everything you said, don't get me wrong, but my brain keeps going back to you're picking on a kid with a lie. Like that's the main point to me. You're picking on a kid with a lie. Yeah. And that's wrong. You know.
And she didn't say it, by the way.
No. No.
And it's not a thing she said. It's a thing. I'm trying not to be too specific with it because believe it or not, what I'm actually doing, Trisha, is trying to make it so that you can't tell who it is that said what. Because I don't want to identify them. I'm still defending that fucking asshole right now.
You're still trying to be nice.
Yes, because if I just said what you said, then people would know it was you. And then floodgates. And I'm not doing that. And by the way, anybody who's listening to me right now, don't do anything. Please. Like, just be cool. I'm cool. Duck's back. We're all good. You know what I mean?
Well, by the time you play this, it'll be 6 months from now, and they'll have trouble finding the post anyway. So it'll be all right.
Yeah, but they're going to remember. People got long memories. You know
this is true. Yeah. This is true.
Not me. I'm going to forget this in like 15 fucking minutes. I swear to God, next week, someone's going to say to me, if you sent me a note a week from now that said, do you remember that thing you were all upset about last week? I'd be like, I'm not 100% sure what you're talking about. Anyway, that's my own personal hell. All right. I had to pay extra for this one because I went on so long in editing. So,
all right.
It's not your fault, Trisha. Don't worry about it.
I was just trying to listen, Scott.
I appreciate it. You were a good listener today. Thank you. I was a good listener in the middle. You were a very good listener at the end.
You were. We were both good listeners today. Yeah, it's all good.
I just talk a lot.
That's okay. Thank you. You needed to.
Trisha, you're so nice. All right. Hold on a second. Thanks. I want to be friends with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
A huge thanks to Omnipod. Not just my longest sponsor, but my first one. Omnipod.com/juicebox. If you love the podcast and you love tubeless insulin pumps, this link is for you. Omnipod.com/juicebox. The weather outside might be frightening, but you do not need to be uncomfortable. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. Save 40%. Your pocketbook will be comfortable. All your bits and pieces will be comfortable too, because they'll be covered with comfortable, wonderful clothing, towels, sheets, and accessories. CozyEarth.com. Use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. I just realized I said the weather outside might be frightening, but I should have said frightful because I was trying to do that song, that Christmas song. The weather out, you know what I mean. Sorry. Hey, thanks for listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate your loyalty and listenership. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.